If it's metal you're looking for, you're going to find it right here on Metal World Radio.
So you guys got a new record coming out soonish. I guess the time moves pretty quickly. Savage New Times was out August 15th.
Yep.
I took a listen to Just a Rat. I took a listen to there's a couple things on Spotify that popped up today. I was cruising around, listening while I was driving. I'm curious about the new record. What do you got to say about it? Like, what direction do you feel it's going in compared to your previous material? And kind of what was the influence of the writing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the overall like feeling on the record is like a kick-ass extension from where like Wake Up Dead was kind of taking us. I think removing our former guitar player after the Built to Destroy record was like a big moment forward to finally like get me, Lennon, and L, who have been here for so long, like the music we wanted this band to create, and that's what you're hearing now with Wake Up Dead, and then much more on Savage New Times. Lennon has taken over a huge role in the writing process, and we were just like, what the hell you been doing this whole time, bro? Just hiding back there at the drums with all these killer riffs, and Lane coming in, a Canadian shredder. He's really been that guy that we have searched the world for. Like, we went through a bunch of players, man, and this dude is like finally the guy that's like humble. He's cool. He works his ass off, and then he's got all this killer library of just riffs and piano and solos and 12-string guitar, and just being a young kid, it blew my mind. Like, the whole writing process, how just friendlier it was for the band, and like fun. Like, that was the big thing I noticed. A lot of fun was happening for us during this time. Like, Lennon and Lane got together and went to like Texas and recorded. It must have been like at least 3 months of writing together, which we had never done. It'd always been like, the former guitar player would write it and we wouldn't get no say. He would strap us till the deadlines were all met so things couldn't get changed. And it was just a tough process. And this was like that enjoyment. So now you hear us gripping with this experimentation, but still keeping like the roots of who we are. And that's heavy metal. I think we're not like this specific thrash or whatever it is. We're a band that can use a lot of different elements from all of our influences, from Judas Priest. I think you hear a little bit on this. You hear,
Yep.
some Abigail. You hear just a lot of cool, even into our like Just a Rat with the riffage that's coming from there, like a Chimera feel, Fear Factory feel. I think we were able to just become that band we've been trying to get to. And, this record, from beginning to end, I think is something that people will take a lot of different cool aspects of metal from, and what it's tasting, what it's feeling like. It's just got a cool vibe.
That's what I was thinking in my head. I heard some Exhumed and stuff in there too, like Fear
Yeah.
Factory, as you mentioned. We're obviously, I think we're from like the same era, so to speak. My formative years in metal were in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, so I got a lot of that
Yeah.
crossover between like the new metal, and then but I was also listening to extreme metal at the same time. Like, I was really into death metal, but I was also like super into like thrash and groove metal. And when Fear Factory came around, those bands really
Yeah.
blew my mind. And that the guitar tone that I was hearing in Just a Rat really reminds me of that. Like, it gripped me right away because I was like, oh, this is something that's like dear to me. It's familiar to me, that sound. Tell me about who recorded, mixed, and mastered and all that, because it sounds thick, very thick.
Yeah, actually, it was Steve Evans, and he's been with us. This is his fourth record working with us now. So I think, again, you Wake Up Dead to now, you're finding that cohesion where, we finally brought him the guitar player he's needed us to have, and we brought the right songs to him to where it's like he knew how we've grown, he knew what we were capable of and the direction we could go to, and I think the sound just came across huge with Lane producing the tone that he gets from what he's doing. I think it's going to be a real standout tone in the metal world for a lot of dudes trying to chase tone, and he brings it. And then Arthur Risk, who put the master together, and like it was a perfect combo of dudes that worked together. They were very friendly with each other. They knew what we wanted and how we wanted without altering it or making it worse. And I think it's cool that nowadays, like me and you just talked about, like new metal, like we're able now to like take the really cool elements of what new metal was doing, and
Yeah.
a lot of that I think is guitar tones, and just bringing it up a little slightly more so it's not so low and dripping down, but still kind of tight. It's working well with these songs.
Some of the the older metalheads, I don't want to say like older, it's like as a bad thing, but
Yeah,
like especially around the time when new metal was happening, there was like I don't want to say separation, but there was people who absolutely were like, no, I don't like new metal. But
yeah,
there
yeah.
was some great shit. There was like Seven Dust, like they put
Oh
out
yeah,
some
yeah.
really solid records. And Static X, their first record, Wisconsin Death Trip, like when that came out,
Dude,
it
that's a ripper, dude.
it was
Like,
like blew my head apart because I was like
ah,
looking for the replacement for White Zombie, right? 'Cause, so to speak, because after White
that's
Zombie
good.
broke up, that like destroyed me. I was like, what am I gonna do now? Because the Rob Zombie solo stuff to me was just, I don't even know what that was. It's not my cup of tea. But
Yeah, I hear you on that.
after White Zombie went away, I was like, what happened with that side of metal, like that experimenting with samples and like really getting obviously studio rats, right? Like
Yeah,
they're just
yeah.
really, but
I
yeah,
think the cool thing that came from that too was kind of like that beginning stage East Coast metal that was like the Kill Switch and Shadows Fall. That too was a big part of like the beginning of the band. You listen like Slaughter, etc. It came from that, so
yeah,
it was a cool growth that I think we got to experience, like listening to bands and the scenes how it changed over time.
yeah. How did it? So you obviously grew up around metal. How did it form you and like what was the moment when you're like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm doing.
Man, I honestly believe it was, the day I was born. Like I literally, my mom, she was a single mother of five kids. She went to Arizona on a chance to begin this bar that would also have food and metal, which was never happening anywhere in Arizona. It wasn't there. And in turn, within a year, she had bands like Poison and Flotsam and Jetsam, and Rob Halford being a regular. Like he was there the day I came home from the hospital to walk into the office of this shithole bar and throw me up the horns. Like that was like the moment where it was like, all right, dude, I'm christening this child to be a fucking metalhead. And then it was like, she started working with bands like Sacred Reich and Atrophy, and really diving into the local Arizona bands. I mean, Danny Wilker and Nuclear Blast would be crashing on the sofa on their tours, and fucking Jason Rainey at Sacred Reich RIP would be sleeping in the guest room, dude. Or and then it just begot crazier, man. You'd have next thing you got these Brazilian dudes showing up at the house, and they don't speak English, and we're all just kids terrorizing them and just fucking putting them through hell. And and it just always was crazy, man. We had very fucking cool parents. We were scummy metalhead white trash, man, in Phoenix, Arizona, and it just was everything I loved about the life. Just going to shows. My older brother was super into music and the scene, and provided those really cool bands to listen to. I mean, even going back to like Funk Junkies and L7 and all those kind of things that were taking place at that time. And then it was like Deftones and Faith No More and
Hmm.
Rage Against the Machine, and then it just kept going. And Metallica was something I died for because Jason Newsted was very big to my family, in those Flotsam and Jetsam years. I mean, that's how he became in Metallica, is from,
Yeah.
playing my mom's bar and being a close person to us, and, what was going on. So I think it was just destiny, man, that I do this. And now it's like become even more bigger and pressure to where I'm like trying to carry on this legacy of a Cavalera name, which like
Yeah.
wasn't the case when I was like getting this shit going. So it's cool, man. A hell of a ride that I would change it all. And I feel like I've been so humble and enjoyed this and fucking really given all I have to the metal scene and metalheads, man.
Yeah, I've done the same. I grew up with metal and played metal bands, and it's what I do too. Like I play all the time, and I knew
I love that.
I always knew Newsted was a cool cat when he quit Metallica and then he went to Voivod. I was like, oh fuck yeah, it's like
Yeah, man.
like
He
perfect.
he had respect, and it's cool to see nowadays. Like, when I'm selling merch for all these bands, like seeing the young kids come with their parents. Like that's the cool thing I think about. Like I didn't like go throw the football out front. I went and like raged in the pit with the dad, or just was really like that was our form of bonding. So I
Yeah.
love hearing about stories about young kids or getting into it through like the family.
And Incites, I mean, you guys have been around since 2004. I believe you formed in 2004, if I'm correct. And, it doesn't seem like that long ago. We're talking 20, over 20 years at this point. So, I mean,
Yeah, dude.
it's like, half your life or whatever, or more, you know what I mean? Like,
It's
so
it's credible. I never would have thunk it. We were, 18, 19, like in the backyard at my friend's grandma's house, like really putting together like this real band. I'd always done like weird shit, talent shows, local school shows, whatever, but this was the first thing that really was like going. And I think a lot of those, the first to me, like 10 years, bro, was just figuring out music. I think most bands, they'll kind of work the local scene that long before things maybe start cracking out. And for me, it was like, that was the fortunate thing I did get. It was put on a tour, but it was like, you have to make this work. You have to work your ass off. You have to succeed. There's no help other than, hey, we'll book you as the first band and you got to just figure it out. That's how we did. We played those first shows. We'd be burning our CDs in the back of the van, shit breaking down, selling no merch, stealing food from gas stations. I mean, it was like, it was fucking nuts. And we really just learned and, got rid of guys that didn't care about music. I think to this day and age, like not one guy from the former thing is really in music and metal in any way, So it's like just to see who wasn't really about it after all these years. And like having Lennon and L now for, going on 13 years is a cool thing after all that early shit.
yeah, a lot of bands don't find themselves for a while, and it's like it's a very rare we have that flash in the pan. Um, like the bands like Metallica or whatever, they're
Yeah.
fortunate to within a couple of years of forming to have that like that cohesion chemistry, and they're all about
Yeah.
living the life, and I think a lot of people they don't understand. It's difficult. And I mean, like, so 2004, especially to now, like the industry has changed so much,
Yeah. It's
so
a
much.
completely different world for
So
sure.
you've seen, you guys have been around so long, not to date you or age you, but
Oh, you're
you,
good.
you've seen the fall of physical media, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then, but now we're in this resurgence of physical media again, where people are super interested in vinyl and they're interested in cassettes. And I think there's a whole generation of kids out there, and it's crazy to me to think this, that missed that entire opportunity of like getting a CD home or whatever and opening it up and reading the lyrics and like looking at the picture and like taking in the full album. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think the whole experience of what music used to be for, when we were kids is completely lost. That was what made it so special back then. I think now it doesn't, it's not that kind of special. What it does now is I think provides emotional love, or like a hard day, a good song is great for that, or like a shitty breakup, there's music that's good for that. So it's evolved so much in every aspect. When I started, yeah, Napster was just becoming a thing, burning CDs was just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Everything there was against it. And the thing that I give Insight big credit for is, we've never jumped at the fact to be on a huge label. We've never, walked around and been like, hey, we're these guys, we deserve all this shit. We have literally just taken what we can get. We've worked with the most underground of underground labels and booking agents and everything you can have, to just like do enough to be a band and tour and like put out records and shit. I
Yeah.
think now it's like every band has that moment where the team just coalesces perfectly and everybody believes in it, and then the record is made where it's also going to stand up to what these people are doing for it. And that's what we were patient enough to finally have, like with RPM record label jumping on board now, and putting their full arsenal of everything once they heard this record behind us, like that. To have that belief after all these years and so many letdowns of like, us believing in the record, but then it coming out and it's selling like 100 units, and we're like, how the fuck is that possible? We sell that at one show when we play it in Texas. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? So to have that thing where you feel like, damn, we're not going to be fucking let down finally, it's amazing, dude. And like, FM Music Management has been just stellar in everything they've done. They've gotten us like on the right ship, post COVID, and everything that happened with our prior management, and it's just like I've always thought it would be, like where everything just coalesced perfectly and right, and it's just there it goes, man. And that's cool to just still be feeling after all this time. It's like fucking crazy.
And it makes me happy to hear that you're happy recording music, because when you get into the grind, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's you have people who are just like, they make the atmosphere not fun. It's music, and like the key word is muse. Like we're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
we're supposed to be having fun to some
Yeah, when
degree,
you live
right?
with an asshole, man, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like there's these guys that just want to self-sabotage it, like just for like principle of just their fucking ego and shit. It's like, how about like thinking of the betterment of the band? Those are the bands that make it, that can put that shit aside, fucking create, have fun, remember what you're doing it for.
Yeah, and this is a PSA. LSD just doesn't happen to just singers; can happen to other members of the band's lead singer's disease. It's very serious.
Oh yeah.
It's often fatal, and I'm not to say that you're you fall into the category.
See,
You
singers
seem like the
blame it on
complete
the
opposite.
drummers.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Like, that's great, man.
That
Yeah, I think everybody in a band has their moment except bass players. They're obviously always just the fucking cool dude that
yeah,
loves doing it. And all the other guys are the ones that have to beef it out. And at this age, that kind of goes away. Now it's just like we just want to play. There's no egos involved in the band. It's just like, let's fucking rock and let's be awesome together.
right on. Let's talk about so when this album comes out. As I was mentioning, physical releases. I'm a physical release guy, so this is for me as well as
Yeah.
listeners. Where can I grab that right now? Like, can I pre-order? Where can I do that? Do you have any packages, anything like that coming out that I need to know about?
Yeah, pre-orders available everywhere right now. I mean, RPM has their websites, Bandcamps, and wherever you get your music, it's available at. They're doing the first limited edition green puke vinyl, I believe, is what the first drop is for the special, vinyl collectors out there. And
Very
I
nice.
just got one, man, and it is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
We're a band that like loves artwork. We worked with like Dan Seagrave and Andre Buzikov and these really cool people, because for us growing up, you remember vinyl stores when you walk in, the smell, and you didn't know shit mostly. You just looked, and when you saw a cool cover, you bought that and you checked it out,
yeah.
whether it was like, Metallica or Megadeth or all those early things at Sepultura. Like, that's what we want for our covers. So, Marcelo did this incredible cover, and he worked with Slayer and Deicide and Kerry King and just killer bands. So I
That
think
looks awesome.
yeah, I think that'll appeal with the splatter. And yeah, we do CDs in jewel case because I'm old school, and we'll be selling those also at the merch booth when the shows are going on. And yeah, just pick it up, jam it, YouTube it, whatever the hell you do to listen to music. Because yeah, we think this record is definitely worth your time.
It is. It's from what I've heard so far, it's excellent, and I'm looking forward to digging into the rest of it. I will be
Yeah,
pre-ordering
man, it
that for
gets a
sure.
lot better. Those
Yeah,
three singles, like they're the record labels pick. Like to us, like the next five that come out are like even just crazier, man.
yeah. Nice. I can't wait to hear it.
I love
I'm
it.
looking forward to that. And so, touring plans and playing plans. What's happening? What's coming on down the road that you can divulge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay to talk about Summer Slaughter. Jamie Jost is taking this thing back over, and hit us up about opening the show, and bringing INCITE to really just kind of kick the night off and get it started, man. I'm really excited about this. To be playing with bands like Bleeding Through and Hatebreed, who we've dreamt of touring with, and Malevolence and Fugitive, who's gonna put the smack down every night, and these cooler new bands like Snuffed on Sight and INCITE, obviously. So we're doing that. That's in July. Only a few shows, only like 15 shows, but I think it'll be a good reintroduction of this tour to metalheads. I think everybody's kind of salty that they're not seeing logos that they can't read and stuff like that. But I think the thing with this tour is it needs to evolve and it needs to add more things. There's so much death metal tours and so much grindcore and all this. I think where we can take one from each genre and kind of put it into this tour, and just expand to where hopefully this can be taken. So we're stoked for that. And then I think October we are doing another tour with an old school Cannibal Corpse legend. We'll just say it like that.
All right. That sounds pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, no, it's good, man. It's good.
That's awesome. Summer Slaughter. Yeah, I got memories of that. 2004 was probably the last time I saw it, or
It's
2007.
been around that
With
long. Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. Necrophagus was the headliner back then, way back when, and like they've been gone for 20 years at least, so it had to have been
Damn,
around then.
I thought it was more like 2010. That's incredible, but yeah, I'm stoked, man. I just want to play. I don't give a shit what the tour is like. We're ready, whether it's Gorgoroth or fucking El Nino or whatever.
Yeah, and you guys have a sound that I think is pretty transferable, and I think people like as opposed to back in the day, there people are more open to what may come their way. I think there's a lot more acceptance as far as influences go.
Yeah.
In metal, it used to be very streamlined, like death metal, thrash metal, and those guys they didn't cross over very much. The new metal, especially, it was super rare to see them with the other groups. But now we have these big festivals and big tours where it's pretty blended and
So I love that you grew up in a time to notice that now, because
yeah,
that's how it was. Like you just said, it was like you were in a genre. You didn't have no choice to be like, I'm doing this. You never saw hardcore too, or with death metal. You never saw it, and
no,
it's great to see that coming, because that's what we ultimately need, man. Like if you like heavy shit, there's something in somewhere that you can find and enjoy and not be afraid to be like, yo, I dig these dudes. And even like seeing like people come out and like be like Linkin Park's heavy now, from like listening to their older shit now. It's like it's just cool to see that shit. I think it's what it's about. It's about just loving music in general, not being an asshole about it.
yep, I agree, 100%.
I love that.
Don't be an asshole about it, everybody. That's the most important
Yeah,
thing. Well,
it's fucking music.
thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We're limited on
Thank
time.
you.
I have a 2 hour show, but I'll split this interview up and it'll be throughout the show. But man, I have a feeling we can shuck and jive all day long if we wanted to about metal. We just probably have a lot in common that way, but it's a good thing.
I love that, man. That's how every interview's been. I'm taking them to the wire because I love rapping and hearing everybody's vibe of the metal world out there, man. It's cool.
Sweet.
Thanks
Well,
for taking your time.
course, everybody check out INCITE, check out the new record. I found it pretty easy online. Please pre-order, take a listen to the tunes and support. And remember to support your local bands. All
Heck
right.
yeah.
Thank you, Richie.
Hell yeah. Smoke weed every day.
All right. Later.
Later, brother. Have